What's up everyone, my name is Nhlakanipho and welcome to my financial education channel. In today's video, we're going to be speaking about 5 rules, not 10, sorry, 5 rules that you absolutely have to know when you're going to be a property investor. Whether you're buying your first property investment or you're already a property investor, then this would sound a bit more familiar, but these are definitely 5 things you absolutely have to know if you intend on purchasing a property, renting it out to a tenant, and building your property portfolio. So stay tuned. So, rule number 1 that you have to know is the 1% rule. What does this rule say? It says that whatever the rental you'll be charging on your property needs to be at least 1% of whatever you bought the property for. So if you're buying a property, let's say for R1,000,000, if you're buying a property for R1,000,000, then 1% of R1,000,000 is 10,000 rands. So if your property is going to be at least rented out for 10,000 rands, then you're likely to be in a good financial position, a good cash flow positive position. And if it's less than 1%, you are unlikely that it will happen. So this is not to say that you shouldn't now have a look at whatever other expenses you're going to be incurring when you own the property. You definitely should have a look at that. But this is just a rule to say this is on a ballpark figure how much I could potentially rent the property for. Let's make a quick example actually. If we make a quick example and let's say you're buying a house and the house costs 650,000 rands. So 1% of 650,000 rand is 6,500. So now have a look at the property and think to yourself, okay, considering the area that I'm working in and whatever my strategy is, will I be able to rent this property out for at least 6,500 rand? If the answer is no, then chances are you're not going to be making money and don't do it. But if the answer is yes, then continue with your due diligence process and have a look at whether it would be worth it to purchase the property, taking into account obviously all the other costs that you'll be incurring as a property owner. So have a look at that, the 1% rule. Now there's one thing that all property investors and owners absolutely hate, and it's repairs and maintenance. These are one of the things that give us a constant headache. However, you do need to prepare for it. And this is my rule 2 of property investing. Prepare for any repairs and maintenance that you'll need to do to your property. So let's say you are renting your property out for 10,000 rands a month, right? And if the total rental income is 10,000 rands a month, then make sure you're putting aside 10% of that value towards repairs and future repairs and maintenance. These might include things like fixing the cupboards, retiling the property, painting the property in 10, 15, 20 years, the roof of the property, which is a really big cost. You need to prepare for this over time, right? Because if it comes all at once, it's not gonna be nice. You're not gonna enjoy it and you'll feel horrible. You'll have to take out debt so you can pay for it, or like you're just going to put yourself in a financial position that is very uncomfortable. That's why I recommend, if you do own a property, put aside 10% of whatever the rental income it is that you're receiving on a monthly basis. Put that aside towards repairs and future maintenance of the property. Let's just make a quick example, right? So you're renting the property out for 10,000 rands and multiply 10,000 by 10%, which gives us 1,000 rand, right? So it gives us 1,000 rand. So every month you know that I'm putting aside 1,000 rands to make sure that whatever future repairs or maintenance I need on this property, I will definitely be able to get it. Because if your tenant, for example, trashes your apartment or your house, the deposit that you have that you've received from them might not necessarily be enough to cover all the costs that are going to be needed to repair the place. Because if they've messed up your sink, your carpets, the paint on your walls, all these things, you don't know how much they're going to cost, right? So rather be safe than sorry, and put aside monthly expenditures, future expenditure, put that aside from your rental income, and then that will be actually a great investment for yourself in the future. You don't want to take out a credit card, because a credit card has interest rates attached to it, and you're essentially taking out a credit card or some sort of debt to fix whatever is wrong with your property, and it has no direct return on investment. Yes, you might argue that, but if I don't repair and maintain my property, then I won't get a tenant. But I'm speaking directly from the actual repair itself. There's no actual return on investment from it. Rather, take money that you're receiving from the rental income and put that aside, so that whenever problems do arise, by the snap of your fingers, you just swipe that bank card that is relating to the repairs and maintenance. That's how I would recommend you do it. Now, my personal rule number 3 of property investing is to reinvest the profits that you make. There's no point in eating the money. Well, you could and have fun and do whatever it is that you want to do with the money, but I would definitely recommend that you don't do that and actually apply some patience in your life, especially if you are very young. And when I say very young, anyone under the age of 40 is very young, because you still, even at the age of 40, have 20, 30 years ahead of you. And I'm saying, if you're even younger than that, definitely reinvest the profits that you make from your property, because that will help you to purchase even more properties and build your property empire, your property portfolio. You're building it so that you can leave it behind for your children, leave it behind for your grandchildren. It can be something that is passed on through your family for years and years to come. So the more you build your property portfolio, the more you'll have to leave behind. And if you reinvest any profits that you make in your property journey, then you're actually benefiting yourself in the long term, as compared to giving yourself instant gratification by going to buy the latest make microwave. I don't know, they even make microwaves, I don't know, but like kettle or whatever. It's not worth it, it's definitely not worth it. But however, if your goals are aligned to that, then you can definitely do that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't spoil yourself. At the end of the day, it is your money. You have deserved it. You've put in the hard work, and you can do absolutely anything you want to do with the money. However, I am saying that if you do intend on building a property portfolio, it is definitely advisable for you to reinvest any profits that you make back into your business, if it is a property business that you are running, or to reinvest the money back into saving for a deposit for the next house that you might buy. A lot of people have been asking me about flipping property as well, right? So when you're flipping your property, you definitely need to be able to understand what to purchase the property for. What is the maximum amount that you're willing to purchase the property for? Because whatever you buy the property for, you're going to need to fix it up, and then you still need to sell it and make a profit from there, right? So whatever you buy it for, it must be less than what it's worth. Not only that, but it must be at a point where if you were to fix it up and put in some expenditure into it, you'll be able to sell it for a higher profit. Let's make an example. Let's say there's properties in an area that are average market value in that area is 700,000. So you need to figure out how much you should purchase that property for, so that you can make a profit, and give yourself some room as well for agency fees if you will be using an agent, and any other market conditions that might happen. If for whatever reason property prices drop, you need to protect yourself against such things. So in our example, let's say market values in that area are 700,000, and we wanna purchase that property. We need to know, we need to be able to say 70% of 700,000. So 700,000 multiplied by 70%, which gives you 490, and then minus any expenditure that you will incur fixing up the property. Let's say you plan to incur expenditure of 20,000 rand fixing up the property, so minus 20,000 rands, that gives you 470. Then you know that whatever amount you purchase the property for, it needs to be less than 470,000, because from 470,000 you will then also be able to include, if you add back the 20,000, it gets to 490. So now, and let's say you overspend slightly by 10,000 rand, you're on 500,000 rand. Now you list the property for 700,000 rand, and there might be any agent commission that you need to hold, any holding costs of in terms of owning the property, because maybe you got a bond, or maybe you got a bridging loan, or whatever. those holding costs of the property will be something that you incur. So you need to give yourself that buffer, that room, and listing the property at 700,000, 720,000, so that you can also give room for negotiation. Because at the end of the day, you need to make a profit. If you're flipping the property, then you need to make a profit. So that's just a simple formula that you can use when you are intending on flipping a property, and how you should determine how much is the maximum amount you are willing to pay. Let's recap quickly. 700,000 Rand is the value of the property, is the average market value of properties in that area. You multiply that 700,000 Rand by 70%, and then you get an amount. And that is the amount that, in essence, you like 490, as I said before, and then you minus 20,000 rands, which will give you 470. So if you add back the 20,000 rands, the 490 becomes the amount that is the maximum amount you're willing to purchase the property for, plus any expenditures that you plan to incur. But also remember, guys, there'll always be things that you didn't expect to happen. There might be a few delays here and there that might cost you. There might be something that you didn't estimate properly in terms of your price. So also give yourself a bit of room in terms of the amounts of expenditure that you plan on incurring in fixing up that property. So that's definitely, if you are planning on fixing up and flipping a property, not everyone wants to do that, but this is just something for someone who does intend on doing that, right? Last but not least, vacancy. You need to be able to prepare for vacancies. Your property is not going to be fully occupied 12 months every single year, since from the day you own it till the day you die. It will happen that your tenant moves out and it takes you a month or 2 months to find a new tenant, depending on the area, obviously. But you need to prepare for this. And how do you prepare for this? You prepare for it by taking and setting aside on a monthly basis money from the rental income to prepare for any vacancies. And if you are able to do this, by the time that your tenant moves out, you would have prepared for a vacancy, and you won't be stressed as to whether, do I have a tenant or do I not have a tenant? I'm struggling to find a tenant. I need to pay for the bond and all the expenses myself. No, you won't struggle, because you now actually have a full picture of how much your vacancy costs will be, and you have a vacancy fund for it also to fund those vacancy costs. So definitely put aside about 10% as well. About 10% a month you need to be putting aside towards 10% of the rental income towards the vacancy and the repairs and maintenance, as I previously mentioned. So do that and your property journey will be a success. So all these costs, guys, all these fictitious costs such as vacancies and future repairs and maintenance, these are the things that you need to consider during your due diligence period. Right? During your due diligence period, when you're assessing whether this is a good investment or whether it's not a good investment, you need to consider those and then actually add them as part of your expenses to determine how much your cash flow is, your positive cash flow is. If after all those costs such as bond, levies, rates and taxes, future repairs and maintenance, vacancy costs, after all of that, you are not in a positive position, then it's not a good property investment, in my opinion. You need to put yourself in a position where after incurring all those costs, it is now cash flow positive and you're still making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever thousand rands per month. And if you and I know a lot of people will say that's close to near impossible. It is possible. It's just about looking hard enough. Like, why do you think people would continue to invest and buy property if they weren't cash flowing positive? I know that there are some strategies where people intend to purchase a property and bank on the capital appreciation, but that's not the strategy that we are trying to follow. The strategy we are trying to follow is to make sure that we are cash flow positive and then treating capital appreciation as a bonus. Because as we do know, property will increase over time and we don't want to bank on that. We want that to be a bonus, to be like, hey, actually the property increased in value and I can refinance or I can sell the property for a profit. So these are the things that are considered a bonus, and do not use them as like don't use that as a backing, don't use that as something that you're relying on, because if you do rely on it, then property values don't increase, then you're fucked. Like, you'd rather put yourself in a position where you're making profits on a monthly basis, and then if your property isn't really increasing in value, it doesn't really stress you so much, because you are making monthly income, monthly profits after vacancy costs and after all the other related costs. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please drop me a like and comment in the comment section below. If you want to see any other different types of property videos, there are many other things to consider in property, and these are just a few of the rules that I've put in place for myself to make sure that my property investments will always be a success. So hit me up in the comments below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll see you guys in my next video. Cheers.